Aita for not telling my husband's friend that his boss is my uncle? My name is Emily, and if you were to ask me what defines my late 20s, I'd probably say it's a blend of tech, friendships, and more recently, a touch of unintended secrecy that has stirred more drama than I ever anticipated. I'm 29, comfortably settled, or so I thought, with Liam, my husband of 3 years who is not just my life partner but also my best friend. He's 30, a tech enthusiast with a knack for solving complex coding problems which seems just about as complicated as our social circle sometimes. Our lives are somewhat centered around Liam's job at a well-known tech company where he works alongside some of his closest friends, or our friends, I should correct, as I've come to know and cherish them over the countless dinners, movie nights, and candid porch conversations at our home. Among these friends are Kurt, Veronica, and Rachel, each a character so vibrant, they might as well be considered part of our extended family. Kurt is the outspoken one, never shying away from a debate, always ready with tech gossip and stock tips. Veronica, with her sharp wit and a passion for environmental causes, often steers our conversations to the latest sustainability trends. Then there's Rachel, the quieter one, whose observations are often punctuated with insights that only someone as observant as her could offer. Our gatherings, though regular, had developed a rhythm and comfort that made each of them both anticipated and cherished. The ease with which we could slip into discussions, sprawling from the mundane to the intense, lent a richness to our relationships that I had come to deeply value. It was during these get-togethers that the fusion of personal and professional worlds would often bring to light the varied experiences of our little group. Our house, a cozy two-story just outside the city's hustle, has become something of a hub for these gatherings. Here, under the soft glow of string lights in our backyard or sprawled across the mismatched cushions of our living room, discussions often veer into work territory. It's during these moments, amidst the clinking of glasses and the occasional laughter, that I've learned more about the dynamics of their workplace than any corporate newsletter could provide. One late summer evening stood out particularly when Kurt and Veronica, after a particularly grueling week at work, had a lot to unload. We were in our backyard, a space that, with its simple patio furniture and a fire pit, invited open conversations under the stars. The mood was lighter at first as we shared laughs and updates about our lives, but as the night grew deeper and our glasses were refilled, the tone inevitably shifted towards the stresses of their jobs. Kurt, his brow furrowed and a serious look replacing his usual jovial demeanor, started venting about a recent project. He described how every aspect of his proposal was scrutinized and eventually dismissed by his boss, my uncle, though he was unaware of the connection. "It's like walking on eggshells," he complained. "You spend weeks preparing something, only for it to be shot down without much consideration. It's exhausting." Veronica chimed in, nodding vigorously as she recounted her own frustrations. "It's not just about the projects. It's his whole management style. Everything needs his stamp of approval, and it bottlenecks everything." She sipped her wine, a look of exasperation crossing her face. "Sometimes I wonder if he really understands the kind of pressure we're under." I listened, a knot forming in my stomach. Part of me wanted to jump to my uncle's defense or at least explain some of his actions from the personal anecdotes I knew so well, how his stringent standards came from a place of deep commitment to excellence, how he often worked late into the night worried about the company's future. But I held back, acutely aware of the boundaries I had set for myself not to mix family knowledge with these discussions. As the night wore on, the conversation shifted to lighter topics, but the residue of their discontent lingered in the air. It was a scenario that repeated itself with slight variations over several gatherings. Each time, I felt a tug of war inside me, questioning whether my silence was indeed the right choice. The answer seemed to lean towards yes, particularly after a particularly heated discussion one crisp fall evening. The air was sharp with the scent of burning leaves, a gentle reminder of the changing seasons, as our group huddled around the glow of the fire pit, the warmth a stark contrast to the chill of the air. Kurt had arrived with visible frustration etching his features, his usual greeting muted by the weight of his grievances. "He's done it again," Kurt blurted out almost immediately after settling down. "Denied my request for a flex schedule. Said it wasn't viable despite half the team already on similar setups. It's like he's got a personal vendetta against me." His words hung heavily between us. I could see the hurt and confusion in his eyes, emotions fueled by what he perceived as unfair treatment. The group fell into a sympathetic silence, each of us processing Kurt's distress in our own way. It was Veronica who broke the silence, her voice soft but firm. "You know, maybe it's time you considered talking to HR about this. It sounds more than just strict, it sounds personal." I felt my heart skip a beat. The situation was escalating in a way I hadn't anticipated. The suggestion of HR involvement was a significant step, one that could have real implications for my uncle's career and reputation. I wrestled internally with my loyalties, torn between my family ties and my friendships, each demanding allegiance in ways that seemed increasingly incompatible. That night, after everyone had left and the last dishes were put away, I found myself sitting alone in the quiet of the kitchen. The gentle hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of night did little to soothe the turmoil inside me. It was clear that what had started as mere workplace gripes was morphing into something potentially damaging, and my role in all this, however indirect, weighed heavily on me. I pondered over countless scenarios, revealing my connection to my uncle and explaining his side of the story, defending him outright, or continuing to maintain my silence. Each option seemed fraught with complications and potential fallout. The simplicity of our friendly gatherings had been overshadowed by an undercurrent of real conflict, and I was in the middle, whether I liked it or not. I will tell you a little more about my uncle. Uncle Thomas, or as he's known in corporate circles, Mr. Thompson, has been with the company for over 10 years. He holds a very senior position, and his decisions impact many people, including, indirectly, our little social circle. To Liam and me, he's just Uncle Thomas. He has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, through holidays, family barbecues, and as an emergency contact on school forms. Our bond goes beyond familial obligation. He was there when my parents were too busy, always ensuring I had everything I needed, and pushing me to pursue my ambitions, no matter how outlandish they seemed. For Liam and me, our relationship with Uncle Thomas has always been more personal than professional. He's been to our home, knows our favorite wines, and even helped us set up the backyard garden. But to Kurt and Veronica, he's the stern boss, the one who doesn't quite understand the nuances of modern workplace flexibility, like working from home, which he apparently grants sparingly and, seemingly, unfairly. Liam and I have often deliberated whether to disclose this connection. It's not like it's a secret per se, but it's never really come up, and honestly, we've never seen a reason to complicate things by mixing family and work any more than necessary. After all, Uncle Thomas is just another relative to us, not a character from their office dramas. But as I've come to learn, omissions, even innocent ones, can have consequences just as tangible as outright lies. As I sat there, the real question emerged not just about what I should do, but what kind of friend, niece, and person I wanted to be. Was honesty always the best policy, even if it risked hurting those you care about? Or was there value in preserving peace, even if it meant keeping parts of your life hidden? The answers weren't clear, and as the night deepened, so did my sense of uncertainty. The only thing I knew for sure was that something would have to change. The routine of scrolling through old photos on a lazy Sunday afternoon seemed harmless, almost nostalgic. As I sifted through digital folders filled with memories, I found a family photo from a large gathering a few years back. There, in the midst of laughing faces and casual embraces, stood Uncle Thomas, younger but unmistakably stern, even in the joyous chaos of a family reunion. Without much thought, driven by a surge of fondness for that day, I uploaded the photo to Instagram, captioning it with a simple heart emoji and a throwback hashtag. Little did I know, this innocent act was about to ignite a storm. Rachel, whom I'd added on Instagram during one of our many gatherings, rarely interacted with my posts. It hadn't even crossed my mind that she might connect the dots from the photo to her workplace. But, of course, she did. The fallout was swift. Rachel, ever the observer, recognized Uncle Thomas immediately, not as my beloved uncle but as her boss's boss, a figure both pivotal and polarizing in her work life. By Monday morning, the news had traveled through the small, intertwined social and professional circles that Kurt, too, had seen the photo. His reaction was far more visceral than Rachel's quiet acknowledgement. Kurt felt betrayed, deceived even. And I remained oblivious to the unfolding drama until Liam came home that evening, his face clouded with concern. He confronted me today at work, Liam began, his voice tinged with exhaustion. He recounted how Kurt had stormed up to him during their lunch break, his usual easygoing nature replaced by a mix of anger and hurt. "How could you guys not tell me that your uncle is Mr. Thompson?" Kurt had demanded, his voice strained, a stark contrast to his typically jovial demeanor. Liam, caught off guard and sandwiched between his loyalty to me and his friendship with Kurt, had struggled to respond. We didn't think it was necessary. Emily and we never talk about work stuff at home with Uncle Thomas. But you knew how much I was struggling with him at work. Kurt had shot back, his frustration palpable. The conversation had ended abruptly, with Kurt walking away, leaving Liam standing amidst the buzz of the cafeteria, feeling both accused and helpless. The emotional toll on Liam was evident as he relayed the encounter. I watched him wrestle with feelings of guilt and frustration, guilt for keeping a part of our lives so private, and frustration for being thrust into an uncomfortable confrontation. As for me, the shock of the situation was overwhelming. I had never intended to create such a rift. The photo was just a piece of my personal history, shared without malice or forethought. Yet, here I was, at the center of a conflict that questioned my integrity and transparency. I struggled with a mixture of emotions: surprise at the unexpected connections made from a simple social media post, guilt for the inadvertent pain it caused my friends, and confusion about whether I had an obligation to disclose my family ties in the first place. That night, as Liam and I sat in our kitchen, a silence hung between us. It was a rare discord in our usually harmonious life. I mulled over the words and the hurt in Liam's recounting of his confrontation with Kurt. It pained me to see him so distressed, a direct consequence of my actions, however unintentional. "I just wish I had thought to mention it at some point," I murmured, the words heavy with regret. "Maybe this could have been avoided." Liam reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "It's not your fault, Em. How could you have known Kurt would react like this? We've always kept work and family separate." Yet, as reasonable as Liam's words were, I couldn't shake off the feeling of culpability. The boundaries I had so carefully maintained between my personal and professional life had blurred, and the fallout was messy. The revelation had not just strained Kurt's perception of our friendship, but it also put Liam in an awkward position at work, straddling the line between professional obligations and personal loyalties. In the quiet of our home, I reflected on the broader implications of my decision to keep certain aspects of my life private. Was I wrong not to disclose my relationship with Uncle Thomas, knowing well that he was a significant figure in my friends' work lives? The ethical dilemma was complex, more so because the omission was not out of malice but rather a natural compartmentalization of my life's different aspects. The days following the revelation and the subsequent confrontation felt thick with tension, both at home and, as Liam relayed to me, at his workplace. Kurt's interaction with Liam had not just altered their friendship, it rippled through their professional interactions as well, creating an atmosphere fraught with unspoken grievances and unresolved conflicts. Sitting across from Liam at our dining room table, a space that had witnessed countless lighthearted dinners and now hosted our somber discussions, I could feel the strain of recent events weighing on us both. Liam had always been supportive, understanding my reasons for keeping personal details private, but even he couldn't hide his discomfort at the current situation. "Do you think I was wrong?" I asked him one evening, my voice barely above a whisper. "Wrong for not telling Kurt about Uncle Thomas?" Liam considered this for a moment, his brow furrowed in thought. "I don't think it's about right or wrong, Em. It's more about perceptions. Kurt felt blindsided because it's his boss we're talking about. It's personal to him, and affects his daily life. Maybe we could have been more upfront, but honestly, I never thought it would come to this either." His words echoed my internal turmoil. Had my discretion been ethically misguided? Was the privacy I valued so much actually a facade that concealed more crucial truths that deserved to be shared? The boundaries I had maintained between my personal life and the professional lives of our friends had served to protect my peace, but at what cost to their trust? The change in office dynamics for Kurt was palpable. According to Liam, Kurt had become more withdrawn at work, less engaged in team activities, and his usual lively banter had diminished significantly. This shift was not just a reaction to feeling betrayed by friends but also a reflection of his increased wariness around leadership, around my uncle, whom he could no longer see just as a boss but as a family member of his friends. At home and within our friends' circle, the ramifications were just as profound but more painful because they were steeped in personal connections that had been nurtured over years. Rachel and Veronica, caught between their loyalty to Kurt and their friendship with us, were understandably more reserved. Our gatherings, once filled with laughter and ease, now settled into more cautious, measured interactions. The trust that had once defined our relationships was now under scrutiny, and each conversation felt like a step on a tightrope, balancing openness with the fear of further misunderstandings. In these moments of quiet reflection, I weighed the benefits of keeping personal and professional lives separate against the trust issues that had emerged. This compartmentalization had seemed essential, a way to maintain clarity and focus in different areas of my life. Yet, I couldn't ignore the isolation it had inadvertently fostered, leaving my friends feeling deceived and me feeling like I had inadvertently misled them. I thought about all the times Kurt and Veronica had openly discussed their work frustrations, not just as colleagues venting but as friends seeking comfort and support. By withholding information about my uncle, had I denied them the full context they needed for those conversations? Had my silence compromised the support I could offer them? These questions haunted me, challenging my beliefs about privacy and transparency. The need for a resolution became clear, not just to mend friendships but to realign my own ethical compass, which seemed to have been thrown off by these unforeseen events. As Liam and I continued to navigate this challenging time, our discussions often returned to the importance of honesty and openness in all our relationships. We resolved to be more communicative, not just with each other but with our friends. We recognized that while the separation of personal and professional spheres is sometimes necessary, the bridges between them must be handled with care, honesty, and respect for the emotional and practical realities of the people involved. As the weight of the unresolved tensions began to overshadow the warmth of our previous interactions, Liam and I decided that it was imperative to address the situation head-on. We agreed that open communication and a sincere attempt at reconciliation were crucial, even if the outcome remained uncertain. Thus, we extended an invitation to Kurt and Veronica to come over for dinner, hoping that a familiar, comfortable setting might foster the openness needed for a genuine conversation. On the evening they arrived, the atmosphere was thick with apprehension. Liam and I had prepared a simple meal, thinking comfort food might ease the initial awkwardness. As they stepped through the door, their polite smiles didn't quite reach their eyes, but their acceptance of the invitation was a hopeful sign that they, too, were willing to mend fences. Once we settled around the dining table, the small talk slowly dissipated, and a heavy silence settled. It was Liam who broke the ice. "We really appreciate you both coming tonight," he began, his voice steady but softer than usual. "We know things have been awkward, and we really value our friendship too much to let it falter without trying to make things right." I took a deep breath before continuing where Liam left off. "We owe you an apology for not being upfront about my uncle. It was never our intention to create a situation where anyone felt deceived. I genuinely didn't think it was necessary to bring it up, and I see now how that might have affected your trust in us." Kurt shifted in his seat, his expression still guarded but attentive. "I appreciate you saying that, Emily. It's just been a lot to process, knowing I've been venting about my boss in front of his niece. It made me feel foolish, and a bit betrayed." Veronica added, her voice calm but firm, "It's not just about feeling betrayed, though that's certainly a part of it. It's also about feeling like we're not on equal footing. If there's important information that affects how we interact, it feels only fair that everyone knows." Their words stung because they resonated with truth. The imbalance of information had inadvertently put Kurt and Veronica in a vulnerable position, one that I had not adequately considered. "You're right," I acknowledged, feeling the gravity of my oversight. "It was a lapse in judgment on my part. Please believe me when I say that nothing shared in confidence has ever, or will ever, be mentioned to my uncle. Our home has always been a safe space, and I failed to protect that." Liam nodded, supporting the commitment to regain their trust. "Going forward, we want to be more transparent with you both. We all share a lot in our lives, and it's only fair that we manage these overlaps with more openness." The conversation gradually shifted from the personal grievances to how we could ensure a healthier dynamic in the future. Kurt seemed to relax slightly, his posture easing as the evening wore on. "I guess it's also a lesson for me," he conceded. "I've been pretty open about my frustrations at work, maybe too open without considering who might be connected to whom. It's something I need to think about more." Veronica, who had been listening intently, finally smiled, a hint of the old warmth returning. "And maybe we all need a reminder that our work grievances shouldn't define our personal relationships. We've all been under a lot of stress, and it's easy to let that spill over." As the evening concluded, the air between us felt clearer, though remnants of the tension undoubtedly lingered. We agreed to meet more regularly, to keep the lines of communication open and to support each other not just as friends but also as individuals navigating the complex web of professional and personal lives intertwined. Reflecting on the evening after they had left, Liam and I discussed how delicate the balance of privacy and transparency is. The episode had exposed vulnerabilities in our relationships but also opened up opportunities for deeper understanding and mutual respect. We recognized that trust, once shaken, requires time and consistent effort to rebuild. In the quiet moments that followed, as we cleaned up the remnants of our reconciliatory dinner, I pondered the broader implications of our experiences. The themes of privacy, trust, and workplace dynamics that had come up tonight were not unique to us but were universal in nature, affecting countless friendships and professional relationships. How we navigate these issues, I realized, defines not just the integrity of our relationships but also our personal integrity. As we turned off the lights and headed to bed, I felt a cautious optimism. While the path to full recovery in our friendships might still be long and occasionally challenging, initiating this open dialogue was a crucial first step. The commitment to transparency and mutual respect we had reaffirmed tonight promised a foundation strong enough to withstand the complexities of our intertwined lives.